Okay. Well, good morning. Sue Hutchins here, once again with the next interview in this series of Iowa Prison Perspectives. This series, for those of you who have not been here before, is actually to inform you, the public, about what prison is actually like for the family members and for the person who's incarcerated. And it's from all perspectives. There are interviews in this series from people who have been incarcerated, people who love someone who's incarcerated, people who have worked in the system at one time, and also advocates like myself. So it's all encompassing as far as I'm concerned, it's all encompassing for the views of prison life for you, the public, to have a better understanding. This is a collaboration between several organizations that I'm part of: Living Beyond the Bars of Iowa, the Iowa Justice Action Network, and Iowa Cure. And all of those organizations work from different angles to work with people who are in prison, to work in the system with different kinds of legislation, and also to work in reentry. We do quite a bit in Living Beyond the Bars with helping people reenter from prison and helping family members. So, as always, today I'm pretty excited about who we have for this interview. This is a man whose name is Dell Pippins, and I have just met him, but I've heard a lot about him. And he is has a wonderful way of delivering his story, and will be happy to share with you whatever he's comfortable with sharing with you about his prison experience. So I'm going to turn it over to Dell, and he's going to talk to you and share with you what it was like for him when he was incarcerated, the experience that he had in being incarcerated. So it's all yours, Dell. Take it over.
Thank you, Sue, for having me on. And I'm hoping that, given the experiences that I had while I was incarcerated, that your work reaches uh, the right ears or enough ears to get this thing changed, because it needs to be changed. And to be clear, for the record, I'm not a prison abolitionist. Um, I guess if I need to be put in a category, I would be put amongst those scholars who are, I guess, prison revolutionaries. I understand the need for prison in a society that some people have to be segregated. Um, However, we don't need to dehumanize people. And the way that our system is presently structured, uh, an ethnography that I just underwent for 27 consecutive years, from 1996 until the governor of Illinois commuted my sentence on May the 4th of 2023. So I have a lot of inside knowledge concerning that. And I don't come just with a heavy academic uh, portfolio, but that lived experience that counts. And I started that journey of 27 years into prison in the summer of 1996, when me, my brother, a couple of cousins, and a couple of friends conceived this genius idea of robbing other drug dealers. Uh, we decided that no one was going to care about us robbing other drug dealers, and didn't get to the fact that maybe the police would care more about the people robbing, since they're the ones running around like jackasses with a bunch of guns and carrying on. So ultimately, in the Quad Cities, um, we were arrested and we faced several indictments. I was the only one who went to trial in both Iowa and Illinois. Uh, all of my co-defendants took plea bargains from the prosecutor to testify against me. And in the Iowa crimes, I didn't even play the principal role. And I guess in Illinois, you can argue that I did play the principal role, because the robbery in Illinois resulted in the accidental shooting of a former friend, and I was in fact the one who pulled the trigger, trying to uh, shoot the lock off a door uh, at a house where he sold drugs at. So I went to trial. I wasn't going to accept a plea bargain from
Yeah.
Illinois nor Iowa because they were taking away too much of my life as opposed to what they were offering other people. And in the case of Illinois, they wanted me to plead guilty to a murder. And I wasn't going to plead guilty to any type of murder. So I went to trial and I suffered what a lot of trial attorneys call the trial penalty. Um, that is a client who's offered a plea
Mhm.
bargain of a certain amount of years. And um, for the people who aren't familiar with this, you're offered a plea bargain for a certain amount of years. In my case, in Iowa, I was offered 10 years uh, with a 7-year mandatory. And given the fact that I had only planned that robbery, I said, no, I will take the 5 years, what I did. And they wouldn't give me that. So I went to trial. I lost and I suffered the trial penalty. I was given a sentence of 25 years with an 18-year mandatory. In Illinois, I went to trial after being offered a sentence that would run concurrent with my Iowa sentence. Um, and I rejected that. So it would basically have ended when my Iowa sentence ended. In the sentencing phase, the judge thought it necessary to run my sentence now consecutive to my Iowa sentence and to give me an additional 22 years, meaning that I would have to serve a grand total of 36 years before being eligible for parole. I would tell you a little more of my story along the way, but just to tell you the summation of that, uh, after doing a lot of things, and I do mean a lot of things to show that I had bettered myself uh, on May the 4th of 2023, Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois pardoned, commuted the rest of my sentence to time served and allowed me to leave the Anamosa State Penitentiary where I was being housed. I had transferred back from Illinois and to be home in time enough to decompress a little bit to head off into a Ph.D. program at the University of Iowa, where I'm now studying international criminology uh, with a minor in biostatistics.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a mouthful, and that's the short
It
version
is
of it.
yeah. Oh, yeah. If you had that to do over in retrospect, or if you were recommending to anybody who was incarcerated or facing incarceration, would you suggest that they take a plea, or would you have taken a plea in retrospect?
Hmm. Well, the one thing about the Illinois issue, well, both issues, is that they also wanted me to cooperate, and
Right.
that I just couldn't do.
Right.
If there was an opportunity to take that time without ruining
Without
someone else's
cooperating.
life, yeah, then perhaps I think about it. That the Illinois one is just a bitter pill to swallow because that's murder. It's not even um, homicide or negligent manslaughter or something. It's a murder conviction. Um,
Mhm.
so I mean, it's hard to plead guilty to that. When I was there, and I know uh, that I murdered no one. I murdered no one. Even the prosecutor in the sentencing phase, when he saw that he had walked himself into a trap, he blurted out and admitted, like, no, the jury found him not guilty of first-degree murder, but the felony murder because they believed that it was an accident.
Right.
Um, so he and that's a long story. He finally went on record with that because he was It was the only way he could cover up for having been duplicit from arguing one basis and now arguing something else during the sentencing phase. So would I do it over? I don't know. I have an adult daughter um, who absolutely would want me uh, to do it over and take the less exposure. But again, it's not me being some hardcore street cat or something. It's just man, and I can't inform on people. And again, in my case, the people that they wanted me to inform on were so nice that they took my mom some money. And my mom not understanding how street works, like, Mom, you're in St. Louis. They were sending me a message that, hey, even though she's down there, we know where she's at. And I understood that message clearly. That
Mhm.
those were the type of people I was dealing with. I had got myself into that position, and it was time to man up. And and finally, I guess to put a bow on it, I needed a speed bump. I needed a speed bump. I was out of control.
Mhm.
I don't know if I needed 27-year speed bump, but I needed some time to reconsider life. Uh, yeah.
I've heard a lot of men, not very many women, but a lot of men say that prison, in that respect, saved their life. That they had to be stopped, like you're saying. Do you think that the prison is the best way to stop people in the situation that you were in and in today's world?
No. Well,
Yeah,
I just hate that as a blanket statement.
right.
It's going to work for some people and it's not going to work for others. Some people stay, if we choose to use that mechanism to change them, some people stay is going to need to be a little longer, some going to need to be a little shorter. One of the worst things of the criminal justice system is that sometimes used cookie cutter. No, people are individuals. People have individual problems, and we can't just because we don't have the time, the energy, or don't want to spend the money, just use this one cloak to cover them all. It doesn't work like that. If we
Mhm.
do that, we're going to have the world's highest incarceration rate, the world's highest recidivism rate, and I don't have to say, "Oh, we do," because you know doggone well that's why I said that. You know,
Mhm.
it's a bad situation that the way the system is constructed now. Some
Yeah.
people, again, yeah, there are some people who that is going to save them. I think it just I I'll go on record here and say that I believe in the Lord. I believe in God. So religiously, I believe that no, I wouldn't have been dead because I would be dead now. I would die on the day that I'm supposed to die. But
Mhm.
I think certainly that bump helped me realize some of the academic and intellectual uh, gifts that God had gave me that I was just throwing away with both hands. Um, it re-energized some of the stuff from my youth that I used to think about. Uh, it brought a smile back to my mom's face, and I was in prison, you know. Uh, in that way, prison I think she would take exception that saying that prison did that. It was that I allowed prison to be the vehicle for me to do that.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. The reason that I ask that, Dell, is because the way the system is set up, it's supposed to be a deterrent, and lengthy sentences are supposed to deter people. And certainly, in my opinion, it's not the best deterrent that there is. I mean, we could come up with a lot other ways to deter people and to get people out of the life into their own life than prison. So that's why I asked that question. If you thought it was the best way to deter, and it sounds like you think that there's a lot of ways, and
Yeah,
that
and that's
works for
one of
some people if they work it.
you
Depends
know
on
we
how you use your time. Yeah.
logically we look at these deterrents for an entity that's often illogical, and that's
Hmm.
the human being. You know, you will spend $2 every day on the way to work to buy a Mountain Dew. Instead of buying a six pack for $6, you spend $8. You know, that's
Hmm.
the economists always talk about. We're not totally logical. But to get back to the social science part of it, the most violent region of the country is the South. And the South is the region that has the death penalty. The death penalty is not a deterrent for murder. Prison
Right.
is no longer a deterrent for crime. We have a young people who I think my generation, Generation X, helped to shape that are no longer scared of prison. They're no longer scared of dying. They're no longer scared of killing. The one thing that seems to scare them the most is all that comes with living. And it's high time that we do something about it besides just incapacitating them, not solving the issues, not solving the issues. We're going to incapacitate you. We're going to turn off your ability to think and reason because we're going to do all the thinking and reasoning for you for 10,
Hmm.
15, 27 years. And then we're just going to thrust you back to the public. Why does this matter? And maybe I shouldn't get this much into my research, but I'm going to give you this tidbit. This morning, thank God, Joe Biden was able to get some of our people back home. But I
Hmm.
watched those people go to Andrews Air Force Base to be deprogrammed, to go through this reacclimation process.
Hmm. Hmm.
And they weren't locked up as long as most of the people who are locked up in
Right.
our own prison systems, who go through none of that. Don't
Right.
tell me that the halfway house is that. No, the halfway house is just a transfer to another prison. People have to be decompressed. They have been at war to sit amongst the people that you have to sit amongst, to disrobe and get naked and share a shower with people who you would never do that. You would never do that. But now this
Hmm.
thing has become customary to use the bathroom without shielding yourself, without showing some type of inhibition. This thing has been removed, and we send people back out with that. A lot of things that person can do a lot of things that they normally wouldn't do now. Their gut, their
Hmm.
conscience can tolerate a lot of stuff. It's the worst. It's the worst. It's not a deterrent. If anything, it is an aider and abater. That's what the heck prison is as it sits now. Um, and I will argue with anyone. I don't care. Sit them down in front of me and we can talk about it. There's no one that's going to convince me otherwise. We're ruining people. We're ruining people with this system as it is today.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your honesty and for sharing that. It's an important perspective. And I hope that people hear what you're saying because you've been there. It also sounds like you used your time as well as you could if you got some education. I'm assuming that you did educate yourself while you were incarcerated. If you're now in a PhD program, that you did do some. I don't know if you went in with a bachelor's or what you went in with, but you did some book education while you were in prison. Did the system offer you any programming that was useful to you?
Absolutely not. None. Uh, I
It's
did
very
have,
important for people to understand that. It's very important for people to understand that the system does not offer useful help for folks. One thing I will say about that is that there was a time in Iowa not too long ago when we had great apprenticeship programs in
mhm.
Iowa that were set up by a gentleman named Tim Deesberg. And those were wonderful. And he did a great job of setting those up so that guys could come out as a journeyman in plumbing or electrician or a number of, I think there were 30 some. So that was wonderful.
I personally, I know Tim.
Oh,
Um, and yeah, I will talk stages. Um, the one thing I will remind people is that prison rehabilitation and education and programming, just like anything, has gone through stages.
mm-hmm.
Uh, and most of what I'm telling you that was the final stage when I exited.
Sure.
Some of it was better, some of it not so much. So indeed, we did go through different stages of programming in prison. Now you have to remember, I was in prison for 2 generations,
Right.
so a lot of
A
stuff.
lot of change. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we had going in, uh, if we go back to the early 80s, before I was ever in prison, there was a whole bunch of programming. There was a whole bunch of programming and different stuff. And as we got on to the late 80s and the early 90s, when I started going to prison, some of that stuff started to wane. Then our most, one of our most conservative presidents, um, Billy Jeff, William Jefferson Clinton, and I didn't misspeak when I said one of our most conservative presidents, came
Mm-hmm.
up with that crime bill
That's
and
right.
did away with the Pell Grants. Oh my goodness, that
Right.
that was one of the worst things ever. This took
Mm-hmm.
it didn't only take away education, it took away hope. It took
Right.
away hope. One of the most important things that you can have in that situation is hope. Hope will bring you through. Hope will bring you through. I'll tell you this one little, I'll take this little detour and I'll get right back on track to tell you something about my grandmother. I used to hope for stuff, and she would say, no, 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 don't hope. We came this far on faith. We came this far on faith. We're not at hope yet. And I'm like, what? Huh? She knew that at least if you were stuck on faith for a while, there was something left. If hope
Mm-hmm.
is gone, there's nothing left. She wasn't going to let me get that hope broken. That's what Bill Clinton did when he took that education away from prisoners. And yeah, it's kind of sort of not even a little bit back, but we'll talk about that. Um, that was a big thing. And then to see that those funds that purportedly the taxpaying public were complaining about, as if the prisoners' families aren't taxpaying public, uh, when that money was recouped, we only used less than 1% of it for the folk out here. Less than 1% of the money that was recouped by not giving Pell Grant to prisoners. In my
Mm-hmm.
personal case, the robust education that I got came from misfortune. Um, my mom, who was only 59 years old in 2010, passed away after a 20-year battle with lupus. She
Oh,
had been a lifelong caterer. Yeah, I mean, it was, and it's tough. That's tough when you're in that situation.
mm-hmm.
And it's even tougher for the mama boys of the world. You know, it's tougher for all sons, but for mama boys, you know, that could be uh, just utterly devastating.
Right.
And it took a great woman, uh, the woman that I'm married to kind of bring me out of that funk. You know, that happened 2010, January 20th. And somewhere around March, you know, she's like, you know, you have to come out of it. Now you're making yourself sick. You
Mm-hmm.
have to do something uh, to honor her, take
Mm-hmm.
the money that she left you. I'm like, what money are you talking about? It's like your mom left you a considerable amount of money that we've been refusing to talk about. You know, you need to take that money and do something with it. Go back to school like she wanted you to do. And I, you know, I did that. I had some, I had I don't know, a big part of my bachelor's degree finished from every now and then I would actually uh Sue take a detour from jackassery and go do the right things, you know. So so I had accrued I had accrued some credits over the years, and I had like a third, yeah, like a third of my bachelor's degree done, finished. And I got finished with that, and oh my goodness, it was a struggle. And even the next struggle, I didn't anticipate. I thought they were going to say, "Oh, this guy is serious." I thought the Department of Corrections was going to say, "Oh, this guy is serious. Just let him go. Let him go." I decided I wanted a master's degree, and in order
Hmm.
to do that, some of the rules had to be eased. And I wrote the deputy, I wrote the director um, every 3 to 4 weeks for like a year and a half. And he finally sent this wonderful lady out to see me named Cheryl Dawn. She said, well, she's like, don't get happy, uh, because I don't think it's going to get done from what I'm hearing on this end. But he loves the way you write, and he wants me to see if there's some way to reconcile this thing. And
Who
she's
was
like,
the director? Who was the
the
director?
director was I should remember this, John Baldwin. It was John Baldwin, who ended up in Illinois, which worked in my favor again.
Hmm.
But she talked to the people at Anamosa, and she's like, "Why? Tell me why." And of course, they used the magic words, this security, this, that, and the other, which when she conveyed it to me at the end of the day, when she had her second thought talk with me, my thought was that she wasn't buying it. And so she said, here's some new stuff. See if you can find a school that'll make this work. And so I found this school, Idaho, and a wonderful teacher that I had already, who was the director of the English department, Karen Thompson, who went to bat for me on that end, to say, hey, these videos, these lectures are asynchronous. All he needs to be able to do is have a chaperone for email, download these lectures, and maybe let him get some articles here and there. We'll figure this out along the way. There's a way to do this.
Hmm.
And so, I wrote back to the director. I was like, hey, I don't need to sit at a computer with internet access, because that was the big stumbling block. They don't want you to have internet access. And then of course you come home with your less than high school diploma and don't know how to operate a computer office, let alone how to get on the internet to navigate to a site to fill out a app.
Application for a job, right?
Yeah. So, but I told the director that, hey, this is how we can do it. And all I need that's not allowed right now is a thumb drive. And so the director basically told them, he kind of volunteered them, like, yeah, do that.
Hmm.
That's a good thing. Let him do that. And so they did. And more humps and bumps and hurdles and stumbles and near uh, aborting of the program along the way, from people making up stuff, and I mean staff members, that I had magically gotten on the internet and I had done this and I had done that. Ultimately, I lost $5,500 of tuition. I was on third floor in disciplinary unit in Anamosa for 2 months. I was under investigation on the yard for another 30 days to get cleared of everything,
Hmm.
everything, not on a technicality, just innocent. He hasn't done anything. The only people who have been online were the people who were supposed to be online were staff, and had this busybody staff asked, she, this purported IT person, would have known that he hadn't done anything. And that was just one of the major, but missing books, um,
Hmm.
refusal to let me in different places where I needed to be on the weekends, shaking down my cell, the cord to my laptop is missing. my graphing calculator is missing. Let alone the way they treated my wife with some of the stuff that she had to handle for me. It was as if she was an inmate, as if my auntie was an inmate, as if my daughter, my biological daughter, and my stepdaughter were inmates. And I shouldn't even say inmates because even the inmate, even the prisoner, uh, should not be treated the way that they were treating people.
Hmm.
Some of the verbiage that they use toward the end, some of the shakedowns that they do to people's families coming in there to see them,
Hmm.
especially your female family members. Uh,
Hmm.
and at the very end, I told my wife that that's it. Don't even come. Just it's all right. I'm about to go out there. I certainly, if I can do 27 years sitting in there, I could spend the next 27 fighting it. And that's
Hmm.
why my PhD is in criminology. It's not
Hmm.
going to be I'm not going to go jump off into the private sector and with my stats and make a gazillion dollars uh, to it go invest. I should
Hmm.
because I have no IPERS or retirement plan or 401k.
Right.
I'm about to be a 55-year-old black man. I hope I die at the chalkboard teaching um, because I guess I can invest in some property or something. But that's my mission. Um, this thing has to change. And if I can show evidence-based proof of what
Hmm.
works, not political speech and not
Right.
me and my
True.
feelings, because I can get passionate too. Both of those
Right.
things have to stay at bay. And let's just look at the evidence. Can we change our society and make our society better? And can we allocate those dollars toward other things? Education could use those correction dollars, you know, and that's where it should be because most of the people in there, that's where they fall short at is on education, uh, and another big group of drug users. They don't have to be there.
And mental health.
Man, oh my goodness,
Yeah. That's a
that
whole nother subject, but yeah,
yeah, that's we
but
yeah, it's our new mental health facility, the Department of Corrections. It's where we funneled all of these people who had mental health issues. We turned their issues into criminal justice issues, and we put them in
exactly.
prison and just incapacitate them.
Hmm.
That's our current director. Um, I don't think she cares for me. Maybe she didn't at the beginning anyway. But I was in Burlington. I was at a meeting, and I brought it up, something that she likes to talk about, how she spent a lifetime fighting recidivism. Yeah. And I'm like, hey, uh, you can take that and color it as you will, but when you peel that back, incapacitation is not fighting recidivism. I mean, you can't be a recidivist if you never get a chance um, to
Right.
commit another crime. I mean, you're incapacitated. That's not
Hmm.
fighting recidivism. That's just going along with somebody's party marching orders. Um, you have to be exposed to this thing. Has this person changed? Does he really still want the quick dollar? Does he really want to smoke the meth or whatever the case may be? That's when we see if we have won this fight against the recidivism because that has to be fought within the person. It can't just be some structures or some things. It has to be an investment in the human being. And who doesn't want to live in a great society? We invest in our people.
Hmm.
Excuse me for the rambling.
I think that's really important for people to hear. And if I'm hearing part of what you're saying correctly, education is primary in that. And some
Absolutely.
kind of job training, whether it's book learning or vocational or something, but something to give people a hand up when they get out so that they don't come out here with nothing and nowhere to go and unable to get a job that is going to sustain them and or their family, at least contribute to their
Yeah,
family. Yeah.
absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
just the meaning. I When I worked in the federal system in New Mexico, I saw so many, I mean, almost to the person, come out of the federal system very, very ready to work and wanting to
Yeah.
do something,
Yeah.
and just hit in the head with how hard that is to get a job that is going to pay anything.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's very, very disheartening.
That's the other
Um,
reality. Uh,
right.
I graduated cum laude, and then I followed that up with a master's degree in statistical science. That
Mhm,
means not just the application of statistical practice, but theory. That
mhm,
this is a robust education. And
right.
yeah, when we get to the criminal background history, yeah, no credit union wants you around. A couple of actuary jobs, they'll use
Mhm,
you, but they want to give you, 20 bucks. I'm not oh, this is not a salary job. You want to pay
mhm,
me a couple, they pay me what you pay the other statisticians. So you
right.
take that and you take nothing. And that got real during this break at the university. My coverage at the University of Iowa is a 10-month contract for, as long as I'm in good standing and finish the program. And that 10 months of teaching doesn't cover July and August. So you got to figure it out on your
Right.
own for July and August. Uh, and heck, I had to sell barbecue during July and August, and
Mhm.
I have a master's degree in statistics. We need to do better. We need to do
And
better.
that's criminal. I mean,
It
that
is.
is criminal. It really is. And it is so, oppressive.
Yeah,
It's part of the oppressive society in a lot of ways that we live in, which we could talk about at another time. But
and,
yes,
and,
it's part
and
of
I should follow that up with one.
keeping people down, and especially people of certain races, keeping them down. Yeah. So yes,
And I
that's
said I had to sell barbecue as if that was a bad. I enjoy cooking. My mom was a world-class cook, so I enjoy cooking. But um,
but
I
still with your
yeah,
degrees, you ought to be able to. Yeah,
exactly. That
exactly.
wasn't shouldn't have been
Exactly.
option one.
That was not your purpose for going to college.
No.
Great as the barbecue is, that's not the
Yeah,
reason I went to college.
yeah.
Yeah. So I did have a question, and now it kind of has escaped me. Uh, did other than the work that you did to prepare yourself for coming out here, did either Illinois or Iowa do anything to help facilitate your reentry? And I also would like you to talk about, you mentioned the way your family was treated. I'd like you to talk a little bit or a lot or however much you want to about the way your family members were treated. And I'll tell you why, because what I really want people, another thing I really want people to pay attention to and understand is that families are really victimized by this system when somebody goes to prison. They really are. And
Yeah.
they are the least underserved population in this country, are the families and the children of people who have a parent or a loved one incarcerated. They get no help from the system, and they get a whole lot of shame from society. So, um, if you would address that just a little, that's like my soapbox.
Yeah. I well, I'll start with the first part of your question. Um,
Okay.
Most of the help, um, as minimal as it may be, generally goes to the uh,
Mhm,
short-term prisoner who's in a less security. For me personally, I was never housed in anything but maximum. The day I left prison, with only like six years left to serve, I still was in maximum security. Uh, so no, the system did nothing for me, and for most other persons who are in maximum custody beyond a high school diploma. Uh, you're not gonna. It has nothing to offer you. For what it does offer, uh, maybe, maybe if the person has the bandwidth and the wherewithal to stay focused and not listen to the chatter around them, maybe reading a little pamphlet and watching a video on TV and writing uh, a three-paragraph essay that everybody else copied and rewrote, maybe that'll help you. It's basically treatment is a joke. As big as the problem of drugs there are in our society, treatment is a
Mhm.
joke. It doesn't help people as big as the unemployment problem or the lack of job skill problem. Um, it, it I had a conversation with the person that you mentioned, Tim Deesberg, um, who did a wonderful job of implementing all those vocation programs, those apprenticeships. Um, but when it was time to update, they were in Tim's way. Tim, we have coding with floppy disk. That coding apprenticeship just has to go. That's like null and void. It has to go. And they wouldn't get out of his way.
Mhm.
I don't understand that. This is a good thing, but I will put okay. I'm going to get back to your other part of your question with family. I want to go back to that vocation versus education, and maybe people want to clump them together, and you can, but I'm going to prime apart this way. If you look at the American uh, collegiate system, what's required for a bachelor's degree, those gen ed courses, those breadth and depth of knowledge courses change people. They change
Mhm.
conversations. Here we
Mhm.
have a person who was just talking about gang banging, and now he's talking about Immanuel Kant. He's talking about Jeremy Bentham. He's talking about the greatest good for the greatest number,
Mhm.
and he was just talking about bull crap. Now, the person who gets the plumbing apprenticeship, he's not exposed to all those breadth and depth of knowledge courses. He just got some things that he's going to do. And most of the time, and if you look at the RAND study, it'll bear this out. You'll see the person who went through the apprenticeship reoffend, where the person who went through that entirety of those gen ed courses less likely to offend. And that's the craziest thought in the world, that those gen ed courses are better at fighting recidivism than any other type of prison programming that we have. That's something that's not even related to prison programming is the
Mhm.
best to fight because, I peel it back a little bit more. The conversations are changing. If the conversation thing changes, what you think about is changing. Now you're seeing the world in a broader scope. It's not just the people who you see in your neighborhood who made it. It's not just the basketball players who made it. It's not just the drug dealers who made it. Oh man, but Obama's just a one-off, or Cory Booker's just a one-off. Those guys. No. Now we're reading and we're seeing it's like, oh no, this opportunity for anything that I want to do, even for our buddy Dale, he's all weird with this math stuff and this stat stuff, but there's opportunity and it changes the conversation. Conversation changes the direction you want to go. You don't want to go
Mhm.
back that way to prison. No, I want to go forward. I want to get the heck away from that thing. We were talking about my wife and I, we were talking about a security issue with the house, and my wife was like, "Well, let's just put some bars on the basement window." And oh, I almost needed treatment for that. Bars? No, we're not ever. No,
No,
never.
no, no, no. Oh, sweetheart, no.
But that's the power of education. It changes that conversation and changes the direction. Oh, it takes them away. I will say, even given some of the physical uh, intrusions, one of the worst violation against the families uh, of people who are incarcerated are those leeches who have monetized everything. It costs you money for them to send you money. It costs you
Mm.
money once you get it for you to spend the money. It
Mhm.
costs. it costs you it costs you money to send an email. They've monetized something that's free. They've monetized emails. They have
Hmm.
this, they charge you $2 for a free phone call. They
Right.
charge you $1 for this sodium filled 23-cent ramen noodle soup. They charge you money to visit your people on video visit. They charge you money to visit your people and well, now this isn't an Iowa thing. I'm looking at this whole spectrum of prison uh, to actually visit your people in person. This you well, you have to have this, and in order to do this, you have to go online. And when you go online, you got to register for this. And hey, man, people, and especially the older people, you're telling me I have to do all of this. I don't want to visit him online. I want to visit him in person. I just want to go down there with my state ID and visit my grandson or visit my son or my nephew or my daughter,
Hmm.
because and we always use these male pronouns, but we have started to see a lot of women, and especially women of color, filter into the Department of Corrections. I mean, in numbers like we've never seen before. Of course, they're
Right.
smaller than men, but if you look at the proportion, it's astronomical. Uh,
Right.
and, and they are starting to filter in there with a whole new different set of needs than those male prisoners. But again, we use the blanket, so we think it's just going to work for everyone. And hell, it's not even working for the men. Uh, but yeah, the family members of the people who are incarcerated themselves. Um, their pocketbooks, the way they are treated. Uh, I if you want a conversation about that, you should talk to my wife. Without me
That would be
coloring it
nice
at
if she's
all.
willing. If she's willing, I sure will.
I'm sure she
I would
will.
love to.
I'm
I
sure
would
she
love.
will. Or you
Okay.
buy a cup of espresso, and boy, you about to get a whole bunch. Like
Okay, because
because she
that, yeah,
remembers
that's
stuff that and two, not only does she remember stuff that I don't recall, but you have to think of the stuff that she endured that she didn't
exactly,
tell me so that I wouldn't lose
exactly,
my cool in there. You know,
exactly. Yep,
it's deep.
exactly. Yes, and there's a lot of protection on both sides. The
Yeah.
family member protects the person who's incarcerated, and the person who's incarcerated protects the family member. And
Hmm.
then so then when you get back together out here, she's a different person and you're a different person.
Yes.
And there are a lot of things, miscommunications, and there are a lot of things that can be avoided if people have an understanding of your triggers and her triggers and the experience that you both had during incarceration. And
Absolutely.
that's what I was fortunate enough to be able to do in the federal system in Las Cruces is the federal probation officers let me meet and do couples counseling and
Yeah.
family counseling with the person who was incarcerated and whoever they considered family. I
Yeah.
mean, whoever they considered family. And that was enormously helpful. I mean, there's a lot of domestic violence. There's a lot of using drugs that was avoided by that. There's a lot of really hurt feelings by behavior that was avoided by doing that work. So that's like my thing. So yes, I would love to talk to your wife. I would love to talk to your wife.
And I'll tell you, even though we had our struggles, one of the things that well, that's another can of worms. I guess one of the things that helped was that she was a nurse. And so, and she's an inquisitive person. So she read a lot about people coming out of those long-term situations. So she was um, ready to deal with a
Yeah,
lot of that. And
right.
when I heard that she was a nurse, it was ironic to both me and her that our country underwent this thing that was the greatest thing since 1920, 1919, that plague. When COVID came along and she was being told that she was a hero, um, but yet for the little while that we were allowed to visit at the onset of COVID, and when we were
Hmm.
allowed to visit when the COVID calmed down a year and a half later, she wasn't treated like a hero. She was treated like other than that, you know,
Right.
and we didn't know what was going on. And she was on the front line trying to save people's lives, and her life was on the line itself because we didn't know. We didn't know crap
Hmm.
about that like we know
That's
now.
right. That's right.
And then you go, you know, and I was happy the time when she stood up for herself, like, hey man, don't treat me like this. I'm out here
Hmm.
fighting for you. I just can't. And I don't know what the heck is going on, you know, but this is what I'm doing, and you should treat me like a human being and with some dignity, if nothing else, for that reason. That I'm trying to help
Hmm.
the society. You know, if I'm convicted along with my husband, at least I'm the part of the conviction that's trying to help. Can you at least have a little dignity, you know, for yourself? You know,
Hmm.
people right, man, can't do it. It's a different class of folk, because they need a different class of leader, and that's what I'm shooting for. I don't want to be a warden. I don't want to be a guard. I want to be the director of the Department of Corrections. That's what I want to do because I want recidivism to end. The people who have to stay, they have to stay, but we don't have to turn them into animals. The infrastructure needs to change. The programming needs to change. Um, the whole spirit of the place needs to change. Stuff that's allowable and look past, well, you know, that's just how Robert is. Or, hey, well, you know, sometime Renee, when she comes to work, she doesn't feel like doing the paperwork. Or, hey, like, no, no. My expectation, and I don't think it's a novel one, is that when you come to work, you do your job. You come to
Hmm.
work, you do your job. You know, that just what and you leave your politics and everything else in the car, and you can don that once again once your 8 hours is up. That's what we need. And if we can't get people who care about other human beings, at least let's get people to that point. Just leave
Hmm.
everything. We just need you to be indifferent when you come through the door. Just indifferent, and that'll work
Right.
better than what we have now.
Yes. Yes. My daughter is an attorney. She's now the court attorney in in Clovis, New Mexico. But she worked as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney. And her thing all along has been, if everybody just did their job, really did their job, just do your job,
Right,
the
right.
system could actually work to
Yeah.
the way that it ought to. Just do your job. She used to tell the detectives that just do your job. And she'd say to the police, don't bring me stuff that is don't bring this to me. Do your job. Bring me what I need.
Right, right. But because some of that stuff is not doing your job. Well, you didn't need to bring this to me. You know, that's just
Exactly. Exactly. And bring me all of the information, not just what you decided to handpick. Anyway,
yeah.
that's another deal. But at any rate, um, and I do want to correct one thing. Just you talked about the video calls, and here in Iowa, just so people know,
Okay.
the video calls are free. A
Yes.
lot of states charge, but the video calls are free.
Yeah.
The phone calls are not. And the feds just passed, the FCC just passed, I don't know if you're aware of this, just passed a bill that now they're going to only be able to charge 7 cents a minute all through the country, state and federal
Oh,
prisons.
okay. That's
seven
good.
cents to 7 cents to 12 cents a minute, depending on the size of the facility that is incarcerating people, and that apply. It's going to apply to jails also. It's
Okay.
it's
That's good.
really nice
Yeah.
because families. I mean, people spend hundreds of dollars a month just to have a 20-minute phone call once a day.
Yeah. When
Hundreds and hundreds of dollars. It's just,
like
and
my
people can't.
first
A lot of people can't afford that. I
my
mean,
first like 12, 13 years of incarceration, it cost me $12 to call my daughter in Arkansas, and it cost me $7 to call my wife in Iowa, and I was in Iowa. You know, I mean, people can't you can't afford that.
you can't afford that. I mean, somebody's not going to eat if you're going to
Yeah,
talk every day, is
exactly.
what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah. So I'm thrilled. Cure, one of the organizations that I'm part of,
Mhm.
worked for a long time, has worked along with a lot of other organizations to get that to happen. And
Yeah.
Iowa did reduce their rates
Yeah.
a few years
Yeah.
ago, but still, this is even a bigger reduction. So
Yeah.
it's awesome, and it's going to start this January, and it will be completed in all the prisons and jails a year from January.
Okay. That's good.
So that's really good. Um, okay, well, I think we should probably close. It's We've been on for quite a while, so
Yeah.
although we could do another one of these and continue this discussion, I really, really, really appreciate your time and
Mm,
your
thank you.
wisdom
Yeah.
and your being willing to share your story. Before we close, is there anything that you haven't said that you really want to make sure that you say before we close this for today?
To the families, um, I want the families of people and who are incarcerated to know that there are people who give a doggone. Last year,
Yes.
um, when I was in my first year of my Ph.D., and it was conference time, I decided to go. Well, all my cohorts, they went to a conference in Philadelphia, which was the criminology conference, which is, it's the big conference for our discipline. I
Hmm.
went to Atlanta. Atlanta was hosting um INCHEP, the National Consortium for Higher Ed in Prison.
Hmm.
And oh, I'm so happy I went. Oh, you talking about so many people, grassroots level people that are fight. I'm talking about every issue. I don't care if it's hygiene, education, gender issues, uh, uh, um, uh, reform of different prison rules. I mean, just art, music,
Everything.
everything you could think of that is the human being. There were
Hmm.
people, hordes and hordes of people. It's not just a couple of individuals at a couple of universities running their mouths. I mean, just it was collectively throughout the country. People want to see this thing change. So, people, when you see those postings, people say, hey, write us, tell us what's going on with your family. That's a small thing. That's a small thing. Do it. Take the
Hmm.
time out. Most of the time, they don't even, it's not even like postage anymore. You just have to log on or toll free call. You don't have to pay for a call or anything. Let those people know what's going on because information is valuable. This is
Right.
what we need. This is what we need. We know we are setting ourselves up, meaning people like me, to get paid for fighting this, to get as a job.
Uh-huh.
Other people have different jobs. We know you can't stop enjoying this fight. I'm motivated to fight, not only for what happened to me, for what happened to your people. So hey, when you see me or any other those posts, hey, stop and fill out the survey for us. It's not
Yes.
just information gathering for the sake of information gathering. You have to have you if you're
Data.
going to fight, you have to have a weapon. It just can't say, "Hey, these guys broke the law, but let's be nice to them." No, we need evidence to say, "Hey, we need to do this different, and this is the better way to achieve this ends."
Hmm.
If you would, please, people who love people incarcerated, when you see those people that you love who are incarcerated, tell them what I just told you about Atlanta. Because I don't want the hope to get lost. They have to know it's people out here fighting. There's more than Dell Pippins out here fighting for them. There's more than a few guys who are in law programs who were formerly incarcerated as fight. There's people who've never been in trouble, nothing, just living law-abiding lives who care about you, man. Um, think about that, man. If when it gets really hard, and
Yes.
and you want to end it, don't end it. Stay in the fight, man. Don't
Right.
end it, man. Stay in the fight, man.
Don't quit.
Just don't quit, man. There's people
Don't
fighting.
quit. That's right. That's right.
Thank you for
And
having
bless your heart. And I consider myself one of those people.
me.
Sometimes it
Absolutely.
gets discouraging and you just gotta hit your head against a brick wall from a different angle.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Some of what,
absolutely.
well, maybe this angle will work. Maybe this
Yeah.
angle. Well, that didn't work, so now let's try this. I mean, yeah, yeah. So
And
yes,
then and every now and then somebody listens to you, you know, you're
exactly,
like, oh, okay, maybe
exactly.
it's
And
possible,
even
you
if you
know.
just, I feel like even if we offer hope to a few people, that's worth a
Yes,
million dollars. I mean, that's worth $1 million. The organizations that I'm in are all volunteer, and so none of us are getting paid anything. Which, but we do feel the reward of
yeah.
being hope offerers, and that that's wonderful. So
You know, I'll tell you real quickly before we close something I didn't mention while we were talking. For like the last 10 years of my incarceration, I was a math teacher. And at one point, I was the primary math teacher because we were losing instructors like it was going crazy. But when I saw I was making 56 cents an hour as opposed to what you know, the civilian instructors were making.
right,
But to see the when the light bulb, bing,
yes,
oh, that's how you
yes,
get. Oh, so the number on the
yes.
bottom of the fraction, that's representative of the whole. Oh,
Oh,
okay.
yes,
Let me do one by myself. That's the reward. Oh, that's just so reward. I didn't even think about that 56 cents an hour anymore. You know, that's what I
right,
wanted to see, you know. And
right.
even now, you know, when I talk to guys, you know, the guys still ask me math questions, and that's fine. But when I
Uh-huh.
get to convey to them, you know, what I'm doing, and that there's people out here fighting, that's that joy that I feel too, that you're talking about. So
Yes,
I know what you mean. I know what you mean, and it doesn't necessarily translate in dollars. You know, I'm waiting for a call for one of the nonprofits right now that only pays in the teams. And again, I'm a guy
mhm,
that's trained to do a job that
right.
is by the hour. It's in the 40s, $50, but I'm anxiously awaiting that call, and
Sure.
we'll see.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Well, and yeah, I was a therapist and a social worker and a substance abuse counselor all my life, and there's not any money in that.
Yeah.
I got, we got 6 kids that went to college, and I have a bunch of mugs that I spent like $20,000 for to get these kids to college, but I don't have any money. So
Yeah.
anyway, well, thank you, thank you, thank you very much.
And
And
thank
please
you
do
for
talk to
having me.
your wife and ask her if she's interested and let me know because I would love to speak with her also.
I will.
And you and I will be in touch again
Absolutely.
in the near
Absolutely.
future. So that's a good thing. And so, in closing, I just want to thank all of you for listening and actually for having the privilege of listening to Dell today. I also want to remind you that we really want to hear from you. It's very important to me that we hear from you, your opinions about this series and about each individual interview in the series. Whether you agree or disagree, please let me know. Also, if you have anybody or if you yourself would like to be interviewed in this series, please let me know that too. I can be reached at iowaprisonperspectives@gmail.com. And that's iaprisonperspectives@gmail.com. And once again, my name is Sue Hutchins, and I thank you very much for joining us today. And I will see you shortly on the next interview. Thank you very much, and bye for now.